Hey everyone, it's Dawn. Welcome back to my channel. As some of you may already know, I have been experiencing a lot of health symptoms lately, and allergies on top of that just wouldn't seem to quit. So I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit as I mix up paints. I am taking a break from blooming with house paint because of this, and I wanted to share with you some of my regular fluid art pouring recipes and techniques. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with explaining how I mix my pouring medium. It's super simple. It is 1 part regular gloss gel and 4 parts of American floetrol. So I mix up usually a quart or so at a time, and I leave it really thick sitting in the tub. Now you can increase your gloss by adding a little bit of gloss pouring medium, something like that. It doesn't really negatively affect your pouring medium, but I don't bother with it. I don't really need it because usually I'm going to either resin or varnish my paintings. So you can see how thick this is. There's a ton of videos out there that show you how to mix this, so I'm not going to go over that and make this video overly long. So what I'm mixing paints for is going to be the photo I'm going to pop up right now. I want to try to get something similar to it, and we'll see how that plays out. So this is my regular pouring medium. I've got my paints all laid out. So I am using the Amsterdam Pearl Series paints, and I have the yellow, the blue, the green, the red, and the violet. I don't use the white. I'm not a big fan of it, so I don't even have any. And I'm pairing these pearl colors with a similar deeper color and mixing them together. And it's going to sort of be trial and error here, making adjustments to get to the right look and feel that I want. And I am going to leave these a little bit on the thick side, and I'll go over that when I actually do the pour. But that being the objective, I have a violet, and I didn't care for I thought the violet that I have from Amsterdam was a little too dark, and this may be as well, but too dark is a good problem to have. If you look at my yellows, I don't have a deeper yellow. So I've got a couple of yellows, and then I've got an adjustment yellow here. That might be helpful. I have ultramarine blue. I have phthalo green, which may be on the dark side, but I think it's going to be okay. If it needs to be lightened a little bit, I have my reflex green. And then I'm just using carmine red, which is a blue red. I want the pearl red from Amsterdam tends to be quite warm. I want to cool it off a little bit. So these are my pairings, and I'm going to mix one color with you, and then I'll mix the rest of them afterwards. And then when we get ready to do the pour, I will kind of let you know any adjustments that I had to make. So I'm going to do the simplest one that I know is going to work first, and I'm going to pour some of my pouring medium in this 9-ounce cup. And I would say that's probably about 6 ounces worth of pouring medium. Just leaving room for water if I need to. So I'm going to add the pearl red first, and I want to show you how much I'm adding. So I'm going to bring you right in, and I'm doing a pretty good squeeze of it. So that was probably half an ounce of pearl red, And I'm going to start with, oh, a mess of paint in my cap. So I'm going to start with about the same amount of the carmine red and see what I come up with or how it turns out. So yeah, I have a bloopy mess on my lid. I don't usually pop the tops. Normally I would unscrew the cap. It makes way less of a mess than this. That's gonna dry and keep my cap from closing. So anyways, I'm just going to mix this up. So this is kind of like a 6-to-1 ratio of pouring medium to paint. And the pearl paints are going to lighten your colors a bit initially, but they will deepen as they dry. And I probably don't need to add a whole lot of water because this pouring medium seems on the thinner side. It's been in my warm studio, which I have not been spending any time with while I air out the fumes, the residue of fumes from the house paints. So this is what I have. I don't know if I'm seeing enough pearl or not. It looks pretty good actually. It lightened that red, which is quite deep, really well. So I might just leave it and do maybe a test tile before I do the actual pour. Then I can add more red if I need to, or more pearl if I need to. So it's that simple. It ends up being about 1 ounce of tube paint to 6 ounces of pouring medium if you're using primarily Amsterdam, because the pigment is really strong. Yeah, I like that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. So I'm not going to have you watch me mix all of these paints up because it's going to take some time. But I'm doing them all exactly the same way, using the same amount of pouring medium, 6 ounces, and then my color. So I will be back when I have them all mixed up. All right, colors are all mixed. I ended up just using the Azo yellow, and I thought that the tone and the depth was really good, so I left it at that. And that is Amsterdam Azo yellow and pearl yellow mixed together. So that's that one. The ultramarine blue came out very faded, so I added a little Prussian blue, which kind of graded up a little bit. I'm not sure why. And I didn't like it, so I ended up adjusting this one with Amsterdam acrylic ink in ultramarine, which is a very intense color. So that brought that back to a nice deep blue again. So that one is ultramarine, a little Prussian blue, the ultramarine acrylic ink, and the pearl blue. And the Artist Loft, of course, doesn't maintain its depth of color well when you mix it with your pouring medium, so I thought it was quite light. So I ended up actually adding the permanent blue violet from Amsterdam to deepen it. And so that is those two colors in addition to the pearl violet. And the green, I actually didn't mind as it was, but I did add a little bit, probably a dropper full of the Amsterdam phthalo green ink, acrylic ink, and I like that color now. And the red seemed very washed out to me, so I added some cadmium red. And now, and I didn't add much, just a very small amount, and that enriched it a lot. And I actually think that, I don't know how well you can see how that's drizzling, but I think that's a pretty good. Maybe just a tiny bit of water in each one to thin them down. Now I haven't chosen my canvas yet. I have a variety of different sizes. I have plenty here to do a large canvas, and I haven't decided if I'm doing a layered ring pour or if I'm going to run out and get a split cup. I'm thinking for the effect that I want, a split cup might be the better option. Um, and of course, I have to mix up some more. I have to mix up some more of my floetrol and gloss gel for a base, which is going to be deep blue, like a navy. I'm not going to use the Prussian, at least not in the Amsterdam, because it's just too muddy, too green. I have 4 or 5 different brands of Prussian blue that I can use. So I'll be mixing that up as well. And I'll choose my canvas and we'll come back and we'll get right to work. All right, here we go. So I decided to go with a 20 by 20 canvas. And this is obviously Artist Loft Level 2. It does, if you know Artist Loft, you know this has the 3/4 inch sides, not the deep edge. And I'm going with a regular cup just because I couldn't get out to pick up a chambered cup. I will eventually. And believe it or not, I did not have a 16-ounce disposable cup, so I found my resin cup and I'm going to use that. It is 16 ounces. I round this up 21 by 21, and then it's like 440 something, and divide by 28 to get the amount of paint that I actually need to cover this canvas, and that is 16 ounces, roughly. So I need to fill this to the top. I left my paints really thick, and I decided, even though I originally didn't want to do this, I decided to put a tiny layer of black in between the layers of colors to keep them separate. I did a few test tiles. The colors, for whatever reason, it's been so long since I've done regular pours that maybe I have my mixture or my consistency off, but my colors seem to be wanting to blend, and I don't want that. So the best way to do it is to use kind of an isolation type color in between your brighter colors. So, and I am going to layer this cup down this side so that I can pour out where the little pointed lip is. I have my canvas all prepped. I sprayed the back to tighten everything. And I'm just going to make really thin layers of each of the colors with a tiny amount of black in between. Let me get rid of these paint sticks because I don't need those. So I'll talk a little bit about the health issues that I had developed, some of the symptoms that I have, so that if you or someone you know who's blooming starts to develop similar symptoms, it's kind of a heads up for you to be aware that you are building up a toxicity in your system to these, to the house paints and the varnishes and the very dangerous ingredients that gas off for weeks after you've poured them out. This black that I'm using, also, I'm getting little drips of paint everywhere. This black that I'm using is actually mixed with pearl blue so that it's not quite so stark, and it kind of lines up with the other pearl colors that I have going, mixed with their component tube color. So anyways, the symptoms, I got my color order figured out. Sorry for the confusion. I'm mic'd up with my headset to keep my voice low so I don't wake my husband. It's early on a Saturday morning and he wouldn't appreciate me waking up. So the way I'm going to layer this is going to be purple, blue, red, purple, red, blue, green, yellow, with the black in between. So if I can keep that straight while I'm talking. Anyhow, so I ended up with a variety of unrelated symptoms that were very random. See how little black I'm using? They seemed unrelated. I had, obviously, if you've heard me speak about my allergies, had a very long bout with allergies, even though other people around me don't seem to be still suffering those symptoms. And as time went on, it went from regular allergy symptoms to ever increasing in severity migraines. I had an unexplained pain in my forearms. I would wake up in the morning and literally be unable to move my hand from this position to this position. It was extremely painful. I still have some pain, but it's not as bad as it was. My knee, which I injured a few years ago quite badly, seemed to be sore all the time, swelling. And I thought that minor changes to my diet had caused that. You probably don't already know that I'm primarily follow a keto diet, and I'm very much into keeping myself healthy as I get older, so that I'm not dependent on what I personally feel is a non-beneficial health system. Not to the people who use it. So anyways, all these symptoms just sort of seem to be piling up. And when the migraines started to be a daily thing, I really got nervous about that. They're more than inconvenient. They're very unpleasant if you've ever had them. And I have never had them. I've never had a problem with them. So, consequently, I began to realize that it seemed to be related to when I was doing a large amount of painting in my studio. So I began doing different things to mitigate those fumes as best I could. And I spent a lot of money closing off my studio from the rest of the house, adding air purification and ventilation. None of it was working. Things still seemed to be getting worse. And it got to the point where it was worse by the day. And I'm running out of black, so I'm going to have to substitute the deep blue. So anyways, it's sort of a kicking and screaming type of situation where I didn't want to stop doing blooms, but at this point my health is far, far more important than creating art. So this is a dark blue base that I had mixed up and intended to pour down a base, and I may still do that, but this is basically going to be my flow aid. And now that I've run out of the black, I need to use it. It's mixed exactly the same as my other paints. And it is slightly thicker. Whoops. Almost skipped a layer. No, I didn't. I got confused there. Blue on blue. So you can see how super thin these layers are. But anyways, so I've decided to take a break and do some experimenting. So far, not having like fabulous outcomes. Using this pouring medium and regular Aussie floetrol cell activator does produce a great cell reaction. However, obviously it's not what I'm used to with house paints, and I haven't managed to come up with anything else. I'm going to keep trying, but I'm figuring as the weather starts to change and we move into fall in Las Vegas, I may be able to do some painting outside, either on the back patio or in the garage, but I will never do it inside of my house again. That is far too dangerous for myself and for my husband. So that is off the table. So blooming obviously is going to be very sporadic in my life, with lots and lots of protective measures to keep my household safe. Alright, I'm nearing the top of this cup, and I really do want to get it right up there because I filled it to the brim with water for the measure, and it was actually just a hair under 16 ounces, which is what the calculation is, 15.75 ounces. And we know that that calculation is not exactly precise. So we always want to have a little extra paint on hand. And of course my decision to use this black kind of threw everything off a little bit because I didn't have as much of that as I did my other colors. You actually need about 2 to 3 times as much of that black, or as your isolation layer paint, as you do your regulars. Ooh. You know what? We are super full, so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to give you a close-up of what the top of the cup looks like. Hopefully you can see that. I don't have the monitor up and running so that I can see, but you see the super thin layers, and then down the side of the cup, if you can see that without me tipping it. So that is what I'm trying to achieve with my cup, so that's good. Very cool. And I'm going to move these cups out of the way so I don't drip paint in the colors. There is quite a bit left. And I'm going to try very hard to do sort of a ring pour type of thing. I mean, it's been so long since I have done any regular fluid art. Let's see how it turns out. So we'll get right to it. And thank you for hanging in there while I kind of went on my rant about my health. I just want to make sure that everyone in this industry is aware of what potential symptoms look like, so that if they are finding themselves in the same situation, they know, or they have a better idea of what might be causing it. Now the color is getting really muddy right now. going to tip it slightly. I think my cleanest colors are going to be the outside ring, which is unfortunate. I'm just going to travel this way because this area over here is the muddiest, and my colors are kind of straightening out a bit. I don't know if this is the right thing to do or not, but I'm doing it. Just gonna keep pouring here. It's getting a weird design, so we need to pour over that. There's a lot of paint. That canvas is weighted right down in the middle, in spite of having sprayed the canvas back to tighten everything up. So loads of bubbles, and I'm actually just going to give that a tip while I torch. Now, one thing I don't want that I did see pop up on my test tiles was some selling, and that's from mixing brands of paint, I think. I did use multiple different brands in addition to Amsterdam. Consequently, there's no avoiding having some cell reactions. It's just the nature of the beast. So yeah, I'm not getting a lot out of that cup, so just need to get this flow extender out. And with flow extenders, you probably already know, you don't need a ton of it. It doesn't need to be thick. You just need to wet your canvas with it. So this is where I get super messy and just wet everything. You basically just need something for your puddle to slide over. Oh, and I am gonna get messy this morning. My shirt is bumping the canvas, which until that moment didn't have paint on it. Now it does, so I can see I'm gonna get a little messy. But that's okay. That's what paint clothes are for. So I've pretty much come to the conclusion that the effect I'm trying to achieve is probably not going to be that close to the reference picture, no matter what I do, because I have probably done a half dozen mixtures and thicknesses and test tiles and just not come even close. This is the biggest one that I've done. At this point, I just decided, you know what, let's just do this. Let's just use this paint and do this. So I'm gonna need to keep frequently torching. Because that is the nature of these paints. They do like to bubble up. So I'm going to start moving this upper edge towards you. And I won't really have much of an idea about composition until I see what the paint looks like stretched out. And I am absolutely not the composition queen. Let me catch that corner. I know I probably shouldn't this early in the game. With these types of pours, you have to remember to always get yourself back to center with your paint weight so that you don't get the dragging. I'm going to get some because it's such an odd pour. And just being careful not to tip the canvas too much and get the paint cranking and flying off the edge, because that we do not want. Patience and slow movements are always best. I'm going to torch again before I get bubbles that disrupt my colors and my separation. All right, I'm going back to center. And probably wise to get it down to the, let's see, it would be your right corner, my left, because I do have a couple of paint bloops in there that I could lose and not be sad about. Drips happen. You know, my jaw just clicked, and that was another symptom that I haven't had in at least 30 years, is a clicking jaw. And that started after the migraines started. So as you can see, the multitude of symptoms I've had were not easy to figure out and relate. But I eventually got there. I always do. This is really cool. I don't want to drip over it, but this area here is really, really cool. And I really like it. And just going to get her back to center, so I don't get too crazy here with the rings of color. But I do seem to have better color separation on this larger canvas using the isolation of the colors from each other. So I'm happy about that. My colors are staying true. And the thing with these regular fluid art pours, generally they don't get real vibrant until they are varnished. So the hope here is that this will dry with some vibrancy. So I need to actually move this entire thing back so that I can get that edge closest to you to roll off. And I do still have plenty of paint on here, so I can kind of look at this from different directions and get some idea of what I want for composition. And let me study this for a minute or so. I know that I just love this. And this feathered area with the yellow and green, I really, really like it. This area down here is very well defined. And as is I really You know, I hate to tilt any of it off, but I do have to pick apart to lose because there's still quite a bit of paint left on here. So where do we go now? I can adjust my paint weight and slide this, but I don't know how that's going to affect this, and I definitely know I'm going to end up losing some of this cool fire look. Tough call. Now I know my paint isn't going to crack even if I leave it thick, and if I do thin it too much, that's when it's really going to pull up different cell reactions. So leaving it thick may not be the worst thing in the world, but what's going to be really, really important is to make sure that it dries on a level surface very slowly. Let's see how she's moving. Yeah, I have a lot of paint on there. Wow, tough decision. You know, and the weird thing is the part that I like the least, which is this swath here, there's no way to get rid of that without losing other parts. And I don't want to leave so much paint on that it doesn't dry right. But you know what? It's literally been, it's been a long, long time. It's been at least a year since I did any regular fluid art pours, serious ones, with a mission that, yeah, I think that it's not a horrible thing if this doesn't turn out or dry perfectly. I mean, there's always going to be movement if you wait long enough. You know, I just sort of love this the way that it is, so I'm not going to attempt to pour off any more of the design. And I don't think that I think that there is not so much paint in the center that it will sag and draw in. And it's a quality canvas, so that's not as big of an issue. I am going to have to monitor this until it starts to set up to make sure I get these bubbles popped, or they will dry into the paint. And as you saw, they came up, repeatedly, they kept coming up the more I stretched and moved the paint. Yeah, you know, sometimes you just have to make an executive decision, and that's what I'm doing right now. There's still a lot of bubbles just under the surface that have not popped yet. They've not fully come up. So I think what I will do for the flyover is I'm going to wait that half hour to an hour. I'll be working on a level surface to dry this on, and big enough area that I can actually cover it to dry slowly. And then I will, once it's all settled down, I will bring you in for the flyover. That seems like the smartest thing to do. So, be back shortly. Time for the flyover. So, as you can see, I did maintain some really great color definition throughout. And the bubble situation is annoying, but I know that's caused by using gloss gel in my pouring medium, and it likes to hold bubbles. This is my favorite area, but the color definition is pretty fantastic, and I'm excited to see it dry. I will bring the dried results to you in the next video, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below or hit me up on Facebook. Thank you so much, and I will catch up with you as soon as I can. Take care. See you soon.